All right. Hello, everybody. How is everyone this weekend? Good to see you all, as always. Not too many of us here today. 18 of us. I'm thinking maybe because of the Thanksgiving weekend with family responsibilities and things, but it's great to see everyone here going through the list. Erica, Alexandria, great to see you. A lot of sleeping and resuming my esoteric studies, Erica says, via meditations, ancestral works, hoodoo, tarot and oracles, plus Reiki and other supernatural studies. Art life on pause for the moment. Well, it is Scorpio season now, and Ophiuchus season as well. The sun will be going into Ophiuchus here later this week. Let me go ahead and get my chart set up here for now, actually. And there was a question from last week about the US chart. Probably go and answer that as well. Maybe do a deep dive into the US chart, US predictively. But anyways, yeah, Scorpio season, Ophiuchus season. We have Mercury retrograde in Ophiuchus. This is the great time for esoteric stuff, time of healing, time of personal transformation, deep diving. Are you all feeling the energy deeply? Is it Scorpio season for you? And have you been doing anything with that Mercury retrograde? How's the Mercury retrograde treating everybody? We have the halfway point of the Mercury retrograde this Friday. Mercury will pass over the sun, and there'll be another week and a half after that. And Mars retrograde this week. That's a huge one. We'll talk a lot about that as well. So Hunt Snowden, hi, Wise Livestream not working. It's probably you're just saying the intro there. I like to start the intro early to give time for everyone to show up. Happy Sunday, Maggie. Great to see you as always. Holly, great to see you. Aquarius Sky Clock, always a pleasure. Happy new moon from England. Yep, we did just have that new moon just last. Well, for those of us in Europe, it was just yesterday. Right? Or was it this morning? Actually, I think it was this morning, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. So like now. But over the weekend here. So fresh new start to the lunar month. Just getting things slowly started. It's the lowest energy of the month right now. And we just slowly build momentum. The end of this week will be in the first quarter moon, which will be much more action, much more clarity in terms of what we're doing, and a lot of things starting to manifest at the end of this week. Happy new moon from WNC USA, from John D. Great to see you, John D. Thanks for joining. Machine, great to see you. All is well. Thank you. Hope all is well with you as well. Izzy, JW, Mind Mastery, that's Joanna. Hey, everyone. So Margaret says, new moon energy is definitely helping usher in some new beginnings for me. Well, that's great. Great to hear you're starting them. Question from last week, right? Could you look into the U.S. natal chart and the upcoming karmic lessons for the country? So I suppose we'll do that today. Give me just a couple minutes. I'll go ahead and set up that chart for the U.S. Let me go and just finish up the chat here. Ipa Phi, hi from Finland. I think a lot from the States are probably doing the Thanksgiving weekend. I can see there's a lot of us from Europe here joining today. Hey, from Miami, Rambe. JW, today is my son's birthday. Happy birthday to your son. And this is my first journey through the Ophiuchus awareness passage. New moon in Scorpio has been beautiful but tenderizing. Yeah, it's been deep for me as well. Donna, looks like there will be some energy with Capricorn and Venus and Saturn this week. Saturn is in my 7th house in Capricorn. Does this mean I might finally meet my soulmate? Well, it's possible. Obviously, there would need to be a lot more going on in your chart, but you might have those other things going on in your chart. But Venus does pass over Pluto roughly once, a little over a year. With Pluto entering Capricorn, though, and Venus entering Capricorn while they conjoin, that does make it more significant, I will say that. And at the very least for you, because it's happening in your relationship sector, it is going to be the new beginnings there for how you connect with others in general. But certainly allowing for the old values, the old connections to be released, as Pluto is the death and rebirth, and expect definitely new values about relationships. And could be some new solid foundations, some new long-term ways of connecting for sure in that one-on-one sector. Hi, Mind Tornado. First time here. Great to have you. Thanks so much for joining. Oh, from Decode Your Reality. That was a great podcast. I really enjoyed it. Glad to see that we have some people from that community as well. All right, so let's go and take a look at the U.S. chart, since that gives us something to do in this slower live stream here today. So I'm using Prometheus here, Prometheus Astrology software, produced by Capricorn Astrology, Gavin Burns. Let's go and load it up. I think I got it saved in here somewhere. What do I have it under? Global USA. Well, there's different ones. USA 1. I think this is the one here. So we're using the Declaration of the Independence signing. That's Canada. So it's going to be this one. So anytime we're doing charts for countries or companies or entities that are not, humans, we're basically using the establishment date of that country. Here we are using the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which is 4th of July, 1776. That's 1710 in Philadelphia, PA. The U.S. chart is a very interesting chart. So let's look at it from the natal chart first, and then we'll overlay the transits on top, because it is a very important time transit-wise, right, with Pluto return and the progressed new moon that the U.S. is happening. That only happens once every 29 years, and that's very significant for individuals and very significant for countries as a result as well. So the U.S. has a fucus rising. That means that as a country, everyone in the U.S., but the U.S. as a whole, is all about healing, getting into that deeper world of a fucus, but actually working with it. So anything that is about empowerment, healing, personal transformation is really the energy around the United States. And if we look at the U.S. history, we can see there's certainly been a lot of those opportunities for healing and growth. But there's a lot of 8th house energy as well, which is very similar to that. So the 8th house is that of fucus, deeper house, and that's where, first of all, the north and south nodes are. So let's look at the U.S. like I would look at it from a individual. So with most of my readings now, I just jump right into the life path, into the north and south nodes, as that is the most helpful way of doing a reading, in my opinion, because it really helps us have more fulfillment and develop more in our lives if we are aligning to the life path. So the U.S. life path is coming from a very self-reliant, so 2nd house, south node, Capricorn, very self-reliant, very materially oriented foundation, okay? The sort of analogy I like to use here is that of a tree. So the U.S.'s tree, let's say, is rooted in the soils of self-reliance in the natural world and the material world, money, resources, economy. These would be more global. Self-reliance is just a fundamental of the U.S. In terms of the ethos and the culture and the values. Now, where the U.S. is supposed to be moving into, though, is in the 8th house. Okay, so that's the opposite of self-reliance. This is more interdependency. So the U.S. as a whole is supposed to get more interdependent. rely more on others internationally, those within the US getting more interdependent as well. We can see this maybe going a little bit far with things like debts and government spending and things like that, maybe too far into the North Node, but the astrology actually suggests that that's actually not a totally bad thing for the US. So obviously debt and relying on others unhealthfully is not healthy, but for anyone's chart who has the North Node there, that actually tends to be quite a benefit. So in the sense that as long as it's not too crazy, the US actually does benefit a lot from using debt, working with debt, getting into that more interdependent side. We can also see that internationally too, that it's good to be more interdependent internationally for the US as well. So that's where the US is supposed to be moving into. So if we look at the current energy, like I said, it's an extremely important time astrologically because the US just had its progressed new moon. What that marks is a brand new 29-year life path cycle for the United States. If again, I'm reading this as an individual, then this new beginning happens technically this year. So a lot of the things already started in 2024, including this progressed new moon, this new beginning to the life path. What that means is that 2022 and 2023 was the ending of the previous 29-year cycle for the US. Okay, and we can keep tracking this if we wanted. We would see that 29-year pattern. So these couple years, 22, 23, is supposed to be the ending of the previous cycle. These actually tend to be the most challenging years for an individual's chart. We can see, I would say it's certainly been extremely challenging years for the US as well. Now, once we do have that new beginning, we start to get new perspectives as an individual. So in this case with the country, we start to get new values, we start to get new perspectives starting to come in, and we've obviously seen that very strongly here in 2024. So it's a fresh new start in terms of the life path. Now, what this means is that the next upcoming years are just the very beginning of all of this, okay? So 24, 25, 26, even we could say all the way into the next 7 years, it's actually a more supportive phase for an individual, so it's likely to be a very supportive phase for the US, okay? A time period that's much more conducive for, again, planting these new seeds, whatever these new seeds are. It's more supportive in the sense that life supports more exploring, experimenting, planting new things, okay? Most of the challenges being completed from the prior ending of the last cycle. Now, just to look ahead, we will come to the first challenges of what we're planting now for the US in 2030. Okay, so 2030 will be a much more action-oriented phase for the US, more challenges coming in, but a lot of things starting to manifest for the US in terms of whatever's being planted now these next few years. Okay, it's in the 4th house. It's about security. It's about domestic. It's about the home. So from a government standpoint, this would have to do, with a country standpoint, this would be more domestic issues, focusing more on the domestic aspects of policy and everything else. And it's in Pisces, which is actually, I think, really good for focusing on doing things that are more selfless or more community oriented, maybe helping out the homeless problems we have, maybe the drug problems that we have. Basically, Pisces is where we can really help unconditionally and again set these new foundations for those years to come. All right, and lastly, of course, it's the Pluto return, which is the first time the US has had the Pluto return. It's roughly every 250 years. You can see it here. The US was born with Pluto right in between Capricorn and Sagittarius, and now we have that, Pluto in between Capricorn and Sagittarius, and now we have Pluto going into Capricorn here, conjunct natal Pluto. So rebirth, a new beginning, the death and rebirth. Now the actual conjunction has technically already started, so most of, again, those challenging energies have passed astrologically, and what we're starting to see now is the new beginnings of that. It's the new beginnings for the US in terms of really restructuring things. Now, this is for the whole world, actually. So Pluto entering Capricorn, it's for every country, everyone, every individual in the world to start to restructure things, because Capricorn is the foundations and systems and structures of life, and Pluto is about transformation. So, but this will be particularly important for the US, completely overhauling a lot of systems and structures that it's built all the way back since the signing of the Declaration of Independence, when it comes to the Pluto return. All right, so that's how I would read the karma. The karmic stuff is with the South Node, this whole recalibration with this whole new progressed new cycle that just started. Is really about bringing things back into balance between the second house and the eighth house, between the material and the deeper, between self-reliance and interdependency. So how can the US be self-reliant but still focus on healthy interdependency, maybe resolve some of the economic or financial or debt-based issues that the US has had? We can see those starting to get resolved. And bringing more nature into things, focusing more on, what's good for the environment as well as what's good economically at the same time. These kinds of questions, I think, is really good for anyone actively involved in the shaping of the U.S. to be asking themselves and really be involved with during this new again, life path, new beginning. It's all to help us, again, connect more to what deeply matters in life, connect more to interdependency when we look at the emphasis on the North Node. All right, so that's my little mini reading there for the U.S. I don't know if today was the most appropriate time, because I think a lot of us from the U.S. are having the Thanksgiving, but there it is, and hopefully that helped answer any questions about the U.S. for the moment. I'm very optimistic in terms of how things look astrologically, and that's also my reason why, as you can see with where we're at in the cycles of things. Alrighty, so let's see, where did we leave off here? All right, good to see your best hopes. Great to see you, Nova. Great to see you as well. Oh, you're very welcome. I'm feeling lucky. Thanks for everything you do. You're very welcome. Hello to all. All right, so a bit of a quiet chat. How many people do we have? 41. Actually, it's quite a bit. That's quite a bit. I thought there would be less. All right, so if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But what I'd like to do now is take a look at the upcoming week, because we do have a very important thing this week, Mars going retrograde. So Mars is the most important, well, let's just say Mars is the rarest of retrogrades. So the outer planets, Jupiter and above, go retrograde once every year. Venus goes retrograde about little over a year, once every little over a year. Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year. And then Mars, the rarest, goes retrograde once every 2.5 years. So when Mars goes retrograde, it is quite significant. So Mars is going retrograde here on, what is it, Friday? Yes, on Friday, okay. It's going to be, let's go ahead and pull up the sky view. It's going to be in sidereal Cancer, starting the retrograde in sidereal Cancer. Mars will dip back into Gemini, and that's going to be early January. But anyways, Mars will be retrograde all the way until the end of February, all the way until February 23rd. What does that mean? Well, Mars is the planet of our needs, our drives. It's the planet of who we are, what we want. It's basically the more proactive, assertive side of ourselves. Okay. Contrast that to Venus would be the opposite. Venus would be more of what we want to attract to us. Okay. She represents more of the, we could say, feminine archetype, whereas Mars represents more of the masculine archetype. Venus represents more of what we want to attract to us, while Mars represents more of what we need to get or be proactive with. So Mars is that fiery, self-interested, self-oriented, go out and take from life type of energy. So a pause with this week. These next few months, reflecting on who we are from that perspective, what we want from that perspective, reflecting on our goals, what we need as a person, and then on a whole other level, how are we asserting ourselves? How are we expressing ourselves? Are we expressing our needs? Are we asserting ourselves healthfully and in a balanced way? These are the questions that are really good to ask. And those kinds of things in our life are needing a reflection, because what we find during the retrograde periods is that, you know, if we were all just go, go, go all the time, things would get very scattered. Things would start to, you know, intertwine. We'd get caught up on things. We'd trip on our own feet, so to speak. This is why we need so many Mercury retrogrades from an astrological standpoint, right? 3 times a year, because Mercury's the day-to-day. Mercury's all that quick stuff, that everyday stuff that we do. And unless we have those retrogrades, we're just going to get all caught up and tangled in our own nets. So the retrogrades are always an important time to reflect, to take a little bit of a step back, to turn a little bit more internalized, and to just reflect and redo things, and literally redo things. So I would ask you all, what is it that you have been putting a lot of energy into in your life, maybe of recent, okay? But really, this goes back the last 2.5 years, if you want to go back that far. But what have you been putting into your life as of most recent? What have you been putting energy into? What have you been really asserting? Where do you have a really strong desire for things right now? And if you do want to check to see exactly where Mars is going retrograde, you can check where the middle of Cancer is in your chart. So Margaret, if you could put up the birth chart calculator link for everyone to click on in the chat. You can go to the website, type in your birth details, and again, wherever the middle of Cancer is, this light green constellation here, wherever that is in your chart, there'll be a number. Whatever house that is, that's the area that Mars is going retrograde. And I'll do a quick kind of a mini reading. I don't think I did that for Mercury, right? Yeah, I did that for Mercury last week. We'll do that for Mars this week. I'll go to all the 12 houses, but first go take some time to see exactly what area. But even if you don't want to do that, really just reflecting on, you know, where have you been putting your energy? Where do you have a strong desire right now? What are the goals you've been setting recently? These are the questions. And the next question is then, what can you do to take a step back with some of these things? Maybe, is it possible that where you're putting some of your energy is not totally true to you? Maybe there's some things to reflect on. Maybe there's some different approaches, actually. Maybe it isn't just about self-oriented. Maybe it's about the fact that there's other things in life, other priorities in life, other things, other areas that we need to put more attention and energy. So how can we reflect, take a little of a step back when it comes to wherever you've been putting your energy recently? Really good questions to ask. And this also gives us now a prelude. So based on whatever comes up for you here, or wherever you find that it's transiting for you, this gives us a prelude to say, okay, this is likely the things, this is likely the area that you're going to be reflecting on until the end of February, and that it's very good to reflect on. Okay, so good time to take a little bit of a step back, good time to take a breather, good time to re-examine things. If things aren't flowing, Mars retrograde is always a good time to see that sometimes inaction is the best action. Sometimes more can get done with less. Sometimes aligning our energy with the flow of life is the best, right? We want to let that flow, work with the flow instead of swimming upstream, so to speak. And this is all very symbolic of Cancer, because Cancer is about, really reflecting on who and what's important to us emotionally right now. These past few weeks, we've already had Mars in Cancer, which has been helping us really assert ourselves in a more nurturing, in a more protector way, right? Mars in Cancer is like the protector, right? I think for all of us collectively, that protector side has been quite strong with this placement. But it's all about connecting to who and what's important to us emotionally, making sure we practice self-care, self-nurturance as well, taking care of ourselves, taking care of our bodies, taking care of the limitations of our bodies and our health, and also for those that are important to us as well. How can we, take that action in a way that is very protective for those that are important to us? In other words, how can we access more of that caring side in healthy ways? How can we access more of that nurturing side in healthy ways? These are all things that are going to be going through that reintegration process. So that's with Mars in Cancer. Let me go ahead and tell you exactly when he dips back into Gemini. I did write the article for that this week, but I can't recall exactly when that is. Oh no, that's years. So Mars will dip back into Gemini here January, let's say 21st, 22nd, sometime around there at the end of January. I think I said the beginning of January last time, the end of January. So for that little gap there, while he's retrograde from the end of January to the end of February, it will be about communications. So anything there that's Gemini, about communications, exchanging with others, siblings, neighbors, peers, these kinds of things come up for that reflection. All right, so let's see where all of your Mars retrogrades are, and I'll do just a quick kind of run through of what all the different houses mean here. Hunt is saying, I don't understand progressed moons. Yeah, progressed moons. So the progressed chart, put simply, is that it's a day to year fractal. In other words, if we want to know what's happening in, say, someone's 30th year of life, okay, someone's 30 years old, we want to know what's happening in that year for them, their 30th year of life, then we need to look at the 30th day after they were born. So the progressed chart is that many days. So for the US, I don't know exactly how old the US is. Let's see. So 2024 minus 1776. So the US is 248 years old this year. So what we were looking at for the US was the 248th day after the US was born. So the progressed is looking at the day as a fractal of the year, and it's insanely accurate. I mean, that's my go-to tool for predictive astrology, is the progressed charts. Very, very helpful, especially from the life path standpoint. Hey Nova, great to see you. So Margaret says, personally, I'm also excited for Saturn to move into Pisces in 2025 because my natal Saturn is in Aquarius. So it will be nice to have the energy move on a bit. Yeah, totally. So you've had your Saturn return, Margaret. Yeah, the Saturn return is the new foundations of our lives. But it is always nice to get that slow movement with the things that we've been building or the things that we've had to be very patient with. And for you, with Aquarius, so, this is a little more collectively for everyone born in the years surrounding your years, but, year of birth. But this is where, this whole new beginning with your Saturn return has been building a foundation in your life where you feel like you can contribute to maybe something greater, or look at the world, the future more, and really feel like you're a part of something that you're building towards, not only collectively, but also for yourself as well. It's been really good to get into your more visionary side as well. But yeah, Pisces will be the next progression of that, which is to then now to make sure, and this is for all of us, to make sure that we connect more with our soul. Connect more with our soul in everything that we build and move forward. Xeno Warrior, great to see you. Can you please talk about planets being retrograde in the natal chart? On the natal chart, it's personality. And in fact, that's a great question. If you already have, so if you're looking at your chart, or if you know your chart, whatever planets you already have retrograde, particularly the fast movers, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. If you have any planets retrograde in your chart already natally, you'll actually find that the retrogrades move forward for you. So in other words, you would be more comfortable with that energy. So for example, a Mercury retrograde person actually feels like things move forward quite a bit during Mercury retrograde time periods, while everyone else is having to redo things. But in the natal chart, just places that on your personality. But really, you just need to look at those three. If you want to see if you're a retrograde kind of person, or if you even need to look at retrogrades in your chart, just see if Mercury, Venus, or Mars are retrograde. Those are the only ones that really matter at the end of the day. The other ones are very collective. Like I said, they're retrograde for almost half the year anyways, and it's really anyone born at that time of the year. So it's very general. But if any of those are retrograde, then whatever that planet symbolizes, Mercury's communication, Venus is our values and relationships, Mars is our assertiveness and our goals. Those things in your life, you'd likely be someone who's reflective on these things, maybe quite unconscious about these things. So Mercury retrograde people do tend to kind of just talk or express themselves kind of automatically, or Venus retrograde tends to express their values and beauty and enjoy things sort of unconsciously, and Mars tend to assert themselves unconsciously, so it tends to be more kind of internal and kind of automatic. So if you can bring more attention to those parts of your life so that it's more mindful, it's more aware, that helps you integrate the reflective nature. But the reflective nature is a very valuable tool. It's looking at life in a very unique way with that planet's energy. It's bringing something new and different about that planet into life with that energy. But all in all, more internalized and more reflective usually. Christine, great to see you. Grand day, Athen, and everyone from the greater Seattle area of Washington State. Great for you to join, Christina. Thank you. So Machine, do you have a Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale on Prometheus by any chance? So Prometheus is always discounted. It's the maximum discount I can give. So the developer does allow me to give a discount, but that's the maximum, and I just keep it that way all the time. So you can think of it as like always on sale. If you go to the developer's website, it will be substantially more. But if you go to Mastering the Zodiac and you go to the software page, you'll see the discount there, and that's always available. But I'm happy to always give everyone in the community discounts. So if anyone does want a report or a reading or the course, things that aren't always discounted, I'm happy to give those to everyone really all the time. So Margaret, if you could put the discount links, we have them in the chat doc if you want to just copy all three of them under the resources page. I think they're all there or whatever, but if you can copy and paste the report discounts, which I do recommend. If you haven't gotten your report, I highly recommend it. It's a 50% discount. But yeah, the report discount, the readings discount, and the courses discount, and everyone, copy them and save them because they're available to you all the time. I probably will run some sort of promotion for the holidays for everyone else, but everyone here, you guys have permanent discount. Holly, I've been getting back to creativity after a long pause due to cataracts. So I'm sorry to hear about the cataracts, but yeah, maybe you got some things in your fifth house about self-expression. I'd be curious if you do there. Okay, so the houses are the ones in the middle. The numbers. So wherever that middle of Cancer was, whatever number of section that is, you will see the numbers. Okay, so let's go through it. So if Mars is retrograde in your first house, that's really the epitome of what we're talking about here. You're going to go through your goals, who you are, what you want. First house is identity, how you express yourself in the world, how you take action in the world. This is all going through a reflection. If it's in the second house, your resources, your money, finances, and fundamentally your resources, like your inner resources, self-worth, self-value, things like this. Your third house will be that communication, very much like that Gemini, how you communicate, how you assert yourself through communication, how you exchange with others proactively and assertively. In the fourth house, home and family, how do you show up in the home and family in terms of being proactive, in terms of taking the lead? And really that stuff with Cancer really should hit home for you if you have Mars retrograde in the fourth, because that would be exactly where the reflection is supposed to be on personal life, home, family, things like that. If it's in the fifth house, it's about your self-expression. How do you express yourself? How do you, are you doing what you love in life? And how can you assert that self-expression and really express yourself directly in healthy and constructive ways? In the sixth house, where are you putting your energy with your work, with your routines? Again, how are you asserting yourself at work? Also, are you putting energy, and how are you putting energy into your health, diet, and routines and things on that level? In the seventh house of relationships, it really is about the other, like how you're interfacing with others. So it really brings out that, are you expressing yourself in your relationships? Are you communicating your needs in relationships, and are you doing so in a way that's still tactful, fair, and mutual, which is what the seventh house is all about. The eighth house is, how are you putting energy into your deeper world? Are you going into your deeper values? And also, how are the things in regards to interdependency going on in your life? Are you healthfully relying on others and others on you? And again, are you expressing those needs as well? The ninth house is all about where you're putting your energy in terms of your inspirations, your philosophies on life, your aspirations, your adventurousness. How are you showing up in your life in regards to how you want to expand your mental and literal horizons? The 10th house is your career and achievement and accomplishment. What is it that you want to achieve and accomplish in life? And what are some things you can reflect on in terms of putting energy into that sector? The 11th house usually shows up as the collective, so community, friends, your network circles. How are you showing up there in terms of your self-expression and your proactivity there? Usually a period where we tend to be more independent when it comes to our friends and whatnot. But again, how can we have both? How can we be independent and at the same time connect to something greater? And then lastly, the 12th house. This is all about putting energy into your spiritual well-being, your mental health. And this is the one here is what I said about going with the flow and how, making sure that wherever you're putting your energy is in alignment with your soul. So, so making sure that you're putting energy into where your soul's guiding you, where there is that flow of life, and if things ever feel like you're swimming upstream, taking a little bit of a step back. But mental health, spiritual health stuff, basically. All right, so there's a little mini reading for everybody. All right, everyone, so we'll go ahead and wrap up here in just a couple minutes. I'll go through everyone's final questions here just to see if there's anything I can answer quickly. Oh, thanks, Margaret, for describing that. So welcome, John asks, is trauma a separate layer on top of your astrological traits, or is it accounted for within it? It's definitely accounted for. It's definitely there. Look at the south node, look at the moon, look at Pluto, look at Saturn, basically the outer planets. There's a lot that shows up psychologically in terms of trauma. But I'm a big believer of free will. I don't believe that everything, is just happens because it's in the chart or it was predetermined. A lot of it's how we work with it. But I would say really focus on the south node in terms of working with trauma. That's been by far for me the most helpful. So if your Mars was on the cusp, it's going to be a little bit of both. It's going to start with the latter house first and then the prior one. So for you, Carolyn, the fourth house will be the first one, and then the third house will be the second one, depending on when Mars shifts between the two. How do you calculate the progress chart? Yeah, you need astrology software for that. That's why you need something like Prometheus. You can do it by hand, but it's very difficult to do by hand. So Erica says, I'm having my natal retrogrades currently in Chiron, Pisces. Chiron and Pisces retrograde, 7th house, and Jupiter, Taurus. Oh, that's where you're having the current retrogrades. Yeah, so those would be the key areas. You can also kind of look at what I just said about those houses for kind of a personal interpretation there. All right, I think that's it. Yeah, so whatever house is Cancer. Forget where Mars is in your chart. We're just looking at where Cancer is in your chart because that's where Mars is in transit. All right, so everyone have a fantastic week. Again, big week astrologically. If you didn't check out the weekly forecast, I went into like 20 minutes describing everything. There's a lot going on this week, but the big one is, where we're at in the lunar cycle. We're just getting things started. We're going to really start to see more things manifesting. There'll be more action late in the week, and Mars retrograde. Those are the big ones. All right, so everyone have a good one, and I'll see you all next time for the next live stream. Take care. Bye-bye.